Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Hello and good afternoon. As an Indonesian, one thing I'm actually really proud of is that we begin our messages and our gatherings with a message of peace. It is expected, it is standard here in Indonesia, it's expected of our leaders, it's tradition, it's just the way it is. But today, it feels necessary because the world that we live in today does not feel peaceful, it doesn't feel okay. There's a lot of suffering that's happening out there, and that suffering is not just what we're accessing on our phones and devices, not just in the images that we're seeing. It is here in this very room. It is very real, and that we faced it in our waking lives. But as I was saying, someone in this room has lost someone they love. Someone in this room is dealing with a parent who may not heal. Someone in here has faced many injustices faced by our system. Injustices which we are supposed to be protected from. Someone here has felt unheard, has felt hurt, has felt neglected. Different stories, different backgrounds, but the same human experience. Suffering is something that we all face. It only reminds us that beneath our roles, our titles, our beliefs, we're simply people trying to navigate something difficult. And when things feel heavy, it's very natural to step away, to disconnect, to log off, uninstall the apps, to escape and put a distance between suffering and our soul. But when we return, the world hasn't changed. When we return, the same cycle repeats itself again. So perhaps the turning point, our oasis, our salvation, is not in knowing when to step away. Perhaps the challenge in witnessing the suffering is not to step away, but in witnessing it anyway, and making the choice not to feel consumed by it. Can we look at the brokenness around us with compassion, with understanding that it's far from perfect, without drowning in it, and still choose to move forward anyway? Will you choose to serve yourself, or will you choose to serve something bigger than yourself? Will you look away, or will you have the courage to look at suffering in the eyes and say, I will do my best anyway? In that moment, there's this one word, choice. This one word becomes everything. Our entire lives, we are laid with choice, big or small, making them compounds into the reality that exists today. That reality that we're facing every day, that is a result of a multitude of people making choices every day, big or small. So when we see suffering, we are forced to decide what role we play in the world. Are we going to be peacemakers, bystanders? Are we going to problem solve? Are we going to help others in these times? Or are we going to profit from their misery? And this is where the question of work begins. Because work is a reflection of our choice. The role we choose to take on is reflected and manifested and revealed through the work that we do. This is why I want to talk about work. Therefore, perhaps the question that we should endeavor to answer is this one: who or what do you serve? And when I say work, I don't just mean your job. Your job is what you're paid to do. And what you're paid to do may take up most of your lives, 90% of your waking lives maybe. In our language, when we ask kerja di mana, we usually mean, where is your office? Who pays you the big bucks, right? What is your position? But work is so much bigger than just your job or what you're being paid to do. Work is how you participate in the world and show up for your friends and for your communities. Raising a child, taking care of your parent who is sick or studying late at night, and making choices every day at your job, that takes work. All of these things are difficult and it takes work to do these things. And every kind of work serves something. Every kind of decision in your work serves a system. Whether that system supports growth, speed, status, what else? Security, right? Or something deeper. And whether you realize it or not, your work is going to serve one of them. And let me tell you my story. Let me tell you how that looked like for me. I just came back last weekend from West Kalimantan, from our reforestation site. It's part of the work that I do. A few years ago, I co-founded a company called Bumitera with my then boyfriend, now he's my husband. And we work with rural communities to restore degraded forest land. We don't own these lands, but rather we work with them so that power stays with them. We work with them to reforest their own ancestral lands. Now companies, they sponsor these lands. And we share that funding directly with these indigenous communities who are working to reforest them, to regenerate them into the rainforest they once knew, that their ancestors once walked, lived with. But restoration, nature restoration, reforestation for us, it's more than just about planting trees. Together with them, we plant high-value vegetation. What is high-value vegetation? They are trees that bear fruit, that can be sold for economic value, that can be eaten, that can be shared. This is durian, tengkawang, rambutan. Trees that can grow big, absorb carbon, produce fruit for everyone. So that one day, after our 5 to 10 year partnership with them, they can be independent. Because the goal is not to be sponsored by Bumitera forever. The goal is not to rely on us. The goal is so that they can be independent, so that we can create a system where people don't rely on CSR to rebuild nature. The goal is independence with or without us. So when we heard that a very prominent and influential community figure in one of our community surveys had a different expectation, we were very alarmed. He said something along the lines of, kami sangat berterima kasih kepada Bumitera karena sekarang setiap bulan kita bisa mendapatkan gaji. Harapan kami bisa selalu bersama Bumitera. So there was nothing fundamentally wrong with what he said, but all sorts of alarm bells are like ringing in my head. In fact, what he said came from a place of gratitude, so it was actually a good thing. But it revealed something important. Our restoration program that we have made for the people of Desa Rumbi was beginning to be understood as a permanent source of income, which is the opposite of what we want. Rather than it acting it as a partnership, as a bridge, so that one day the land will be self-sustaining. So if we allowed that misunderstanding to continue, it could be far more damaging to the trust that we have built. So we knew we had to address it honestly. We knew there was a decision to be made. Because this is the reality. Sponsorship is not permanent. CSR budgets are not there forever. Priorities shift, budgets change, companies face their own financial setbacks, who knows? And when a sponsor steps away, so does the funding that comes with it. Sometimes another partner comes. And sometimes it doesn't take long, but sometimes it takes time. The reality is that more often than not, it will take time. And eventually there comes a moment where we can no longer shield this reality from our community partners. So we made the decision to speak to them. We reminded them that this is not gaji ya Pak, maaf ya. But it's a partnership. It's not a salary. It's a partnership payment tied to sponsor support. When a company sponsors a plot of land, the community receives a monthly partnership fee. But during periods when there are no sponsors, we cannot guarantee that payment. We can still cover the basic costs of maintenance, but we cannot share funds that do not exist. We also reminded them that this is a program that was never meant to provide permanently, that the goal was always for you to become independent so that you will no longer need us. On paper, it was fair, right? But standing in front of people who have a very recent and ancestral history of being exploited by extractive industries, it was not easy. It was not simple. In Indonesia, many communities have seen companies come and go, come with promises of abundance, of profit, but leaving with profit on one side. So we knew by telling the truth, we could risk serious misunderstanding and misinterpretation of our good intentions. But if we truly believed that these communities were our partners, our equals, not beneficiaries, not recipients, then we had to treat them like equals. It is never about financially depriving them to cover our own costs, because it would not even cover it. It would not even move the needle for us. It was always about being honest about where we are and the limits of what we can and cannot provide. So treating someone equal means trusting them with the truth. So we told them. The team was anxious. I am anxious. I'm getting anxious as I'm telling the story. We revised our presentations multiple times. I dreamed of scenarios of the worst questions that they would come up with, and I prepared answers to counter those questions. We revised it multiple times, but we still wanted to assure that we're in this together. And then a woman stood up. She said, more or less, "Jangan khawatir sama kami. Kami tidak akan menebang pohonnya. Saya sudah menebang pohon itu adalah pohon yang kami cintai. Kita tidak akan menebangnya, kita akan terus bersama Bumi Tera meskipun tidak ada sponsor." And when she said that, my heart roared. We did it. It was possible. And she did not have to say that. It was Bu Desi. Bu Desi is Martinus's wife. She works the fields with her husband when she's not teaching at the school. When she said, "Don't worry, we'll stay. We won't cut the trees," she didn't have to say that. She really, really did not have to say that. She could have just acknowledged the information and moved on. "Thanks, Tara, that sucks." Right? But okay, we'll move on. But she didn't have to say that, but she went through the trouble of reassuring us that the partnership is safe. We still see you as partners. Don't worry, we're here. You're here for us, we're here for you too. And that is so beautiful. That's when I realized something. Value had been created. We've created something valuable for them. What is that? It's not financial. It's not transactional. It was trust. She had decided that there was value in working with us beyond the money, beyond the short-term subsidies, that our relationship was worth preserving even in uncertainty. And that value did not come from our decision to choose the path that was easy. It came from choosing truth, from choosing transparency over convenience. It came from choosing relationship over shelter and protection. It came from choosing what we were going to serve. And we were always going to serve truth and faith. In one decision and choice, we have proven to our community, to our sustainability community, a few things. that we can build a genuine relationship with these people if we want to. We can prove that these models work, that relationships with them are worth it, super worth it. People didn't have to be intrinsically motivated by money, by profit, in order to create a future that is worth living. And that, to me, is value. Value that no threat of AI or technology can take away from me. The second thing that we learn is that people, when they are treated as partners, they will also treat you as partners in return. And this sounds beautiful in practice, in theory. But in practice, it's actually something very rare. We may not always treat our neighbors kindly. So when people are willing to build into that kind of future, it also builds a door to build entirely new systems of reforestation, utilizing indigenous communities to become stewards of their own land. This model can now be replicated. There is now hope for that kind of future to exist. This isn't a story about how successful Bumiterra is, though. And it certainly isn't a story meant to show how admirable we are. We're still so far from developing the perfect reforestation model. We're still so far from protecting rainforests as they should be protected. But even as we are figuring that out, we can choose the harder path. And I hope our story has given you hope that you can too. Choose the path that benefits everyone and see its fruit. And I know some of you may say, that's easy for her to say, she's in sustainability. That's literally your job, sir, ma'am. You work in impact. But the choice I'm describing here is not unique to forests. If you work in finance, you will decide what your capital supports, which businesses survive. If you work in tech, you will decide what your code amplifies, efficiency or addiction, or inclusion. And if you work in law, you will decide who your voice protects. If you're in marketing, which stories to tell. If you're a teacher and a student, you're at a beautiful place where you can make choices every day, what kind of future you want to create. And I'm not here to preach about which decisions you need to make in your lives. What is right for me will not be right for you. You will have to make that choice yourself. But I am here to tell you this. There will be shortcuts, and you will be tempted to take them. But I urge you to take the harder ones. Take the choices that benefit others. Because when you win, when you do make those choices and you win by those choices, man, does the victory taste sweet when the good guys win. And the good guys need a win. What you would have done then, winning not by yourself, but with your friends and with others, with your community, is infinitely much harder than choosing to win on your own. So my friends, I hope that you choose consciously. You don't have to do any of the things that I just said. You can forget about what I shared. But I hope you choose consciously. I hope you choose courageously. I hope you choose what your work serves, because that will shape our reality tomorrow. Thank you.